All right, guys, here we go, right? We started this all out with the Kentucky Derby. We made it to the Preakness, and now finally the last leg. Here we are, the Belmont guys over the weekend. Elmont, New York location. It's what they call Big Sandy. Why? We'll get into that in just a minute, but it's all about helping you guys profit a little bit this weekend, and we do that with the one and only Marco D'Angelo, of course, wagertalk.com. Going to give you guys an opportunity not only to get aboard the Belmont package here at Wager Talk, but also Major League Baseball plays coming your way. And Marco, listen, the first two legs here, brother, interesting. I don't remember this. We were talking about the NBA drama earlier today, and I can't remember the last time we've had this much NBA drama. Man, this has been a drama-filled Triple Crown, and we don't even have a Triple Crown horse here, but yet the storylines seem to have everything to do outside of who actually wins these races. It's been a little crazy.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing of it is if War of Will, the winner of the Preakness, somehow comes back and wins the Belmont, he's going to be the horse that's going to have that little asterisk to him. You know, he won 2 of the 3 legs. And speaking of legs, in the first leg, he had the leg sweep, kick out that might have cost him the Kentucky Derby. So we don't know if we could have had a Triple Crown winner, but it's going to be interesting on Saturday. And if he does it, hats off to him. The horse has done nothing wrong, but we're going to find a way to go against him and see if we can find some value in this race and make some money, because our listeners need to get their money back from the first 2. We wouldn't have made a ton of money in the Preakness, but had Everfast not snuck up there, it was shades of Gronkowski in the Belmont last year, just coming up the rail, never leaving the wood, and getting a second that he didn't deserve, and cost me a big ticket then. Same thing happened here. I would have had War of Will and Owendale in the Exacta, which we wouldn't have got rich on, but we wouldn't have been tossing the old Ophir for the Preakness.
Now, this is a little bit different than the first 2 legs. The Belmont is... they look at the Belmont and go, this is the race really that separates the men from the boys, and with good reason. Now, there are a couple of ways to approach this, Marco. One of them is maybe to look at, hey, avoid Preakness horses, right? I mean, it's been, when you look at all the over the years, I think in the last 13, there's only been 2 Belmont winners that also raced into Preakness, and they were Triple Crown winners. So when you look at War Will, you look at Everfast, you look at even Bourbon War, is it a strategy, or is it something you look at and go, you know what, let's just throw the Preakness horses out of this to start with?
Well, it's a good history lesson, but you still got to handicap every race on its own merits. And the horses that, in this case, Everfast beat me in the Preakness. If he gets there again, he's going to beat me a second time, because I just don't believe in the horse. He got an absolutely perfect trip, never left the wood, and it was like the Red Sea parted for him to get up to get second. As far as War Will goes, this is a horse that is the only horse on Saturday that's raced in all 3 legs. And normally when that situation happens, a lot of times it's, as you said, it's because the horse that's going for the Triple Crown. But in this instance, he's not. He's a good horse, but I think the 3 races in 5 weeks is going to be what does him in. I think he's going to be right there in this race and be a major factor of the race. But when it gets to which head crosses the line first, I think that's what's going to get him beat. A fresh horse is going to run by him, and there's a horse that I like that has also taken one of the paths that does work well, and that is a horse that's raced in the Kentucky Derby but skipped the Preakness to put his sights squarely on the Belmont in that 1.5 mile race.
All right, now let me ask you then. I'm glad you brought that up. It's been a hell of a it's been a hell of a trip here now for War Will. How much does rest matters? We know in the last 5 years, 12 of the 15 that have finished in the money in Belmont, usually raced in the Derby, skipped the Preakness, had that rest in between. How much stock do you put in a horse being rested enough to be able to win this race?
It's huge. Joe, you got to understand that at no time other than this will horses ever race 3 times in 5 weeks. Most horses race once in 4 or 5 weeks. That's the general pattern for thoroughbred racing. Is, you race, you're going to have at least 3 weeks off. You come back and race in that 4th week or the 5th week. You plan your schedule out. You're training for that. But the Triple Crown, that's why it's so hard to race it, and it's why the Belmont is also nicknamed, the Test of Champions, because you're not only having to do the 3 races in 5 weeks, the 3rd leg is at an odd distance that for the majority of these horses will never race a 1.5-mile race again in their lives.
Yeah, and that's it, not the truth, which brings me to the next point here. Experience at Big Sandy here. And, if you could explain to the listeners, because they're going to hear this a lot, Big Sandy, why is Belmont called Big Sandy? And how much how much does experience count knowing this track racing on this surface?
Okay, first of all, this race, we talk about tactical speed, we talk about post positions, all the things that make, can make or break a horse in any race, but in this particular one, the most important element is the jockey because of this track. It's a different track. Big Sandy, the nickname came from the big is it's a 1.5-mile track. The full track is a 1.5 miles. They don't have to go around, 1.5 times. They start and finish. It's a full 1.5 miles, and it is like no other track. The turns are big and wide. They're big sweeping turns. So horses, a lot of times you talk about like Preakness has the tighter turns and this and that. Being down in the rail is much better. As you're wheeling around that, the turn. Here, you're not. It's not a detriment to you. You don't want to be 4 and 5 wide, but when you're out there, you're not losing momentum. How many times have you seen horses come off a turn and you see the horse blow the turn, and he's all of a sudden he's 3-4 lengths, outside
he's in the parking lot. Lane. Yeah, he's in the parking lot.
Yeah, you don't see those kind of things off these type of turns. But the sandy part is the track surface itself. The Belmont surface is a deep cushion track. And a lot of people refer to it, there's a lot of sand in mixed in there, and it can be a deep, tiring track. And people say 1.5-mile race, automatically the added distance, you're looking at the closers. Yeah, you want closers, but I will tell you this much. The stone cold closers, those ones that come out of the cloud, not always so good here in the Belmont, because what ends up happening too often is because these horses aren't used to going 1.5 miles, you're less likely to get a fast pace at the beginning of the race because everybody is conscious of the distance and they're trying to conserve energy. And if you let a horse alone on the front end in the Belmont, he's going to really slow it down, and that's going to hurt those, stone cold closers. But closers do well in this race, and those are the ones that probably are just off of what we call, the mid-pack horses in that next tier. They're in striking distance, and there's a couple horses here that fit that bill. Also, this is a 10-horse field. It's not like a 20-horse field in the Derby. So even the one problem that closers always have in any race is you're at the mercy of the pace. You're at the mercy of traffic. With only 10 horses, and in this big racetrack the way it is, the big sweeping turns, you're not going to run into road problems. When you start your move, generally you can carry that move and not worry about, you've heard me say the phrase, oh, he had to grab him and check him, because he ran up on the back of another horse. You've got plenty of time to maneuver. When you see the hole, it's going to be there. You're going to be able to, maneuver inside, outside, wherever you want, and you get that cleaner trip that, you're going to make up the ground. So Closers you do want to look at. History also shows that the front runners, the one that is the first one out there leading the way, generally doesn't go wire to wire. Somebody is going to catch him, and the horse is going to be on the front end. In this one, I guarantee you they're going to catch him because this horse shouldn't be in this race, and I'm figuring that the owner of this horse just wants to be able to have the thrill of hearing when the gate springs open, his horse is going to get the first call. And then when they hit the top of the stretch, this horse is going to switch to a swim meet, and he's going to do the backstroke down the stretch.
All right, we're going to talk about a couple of these horses, Marco, but I wanted to ask you, it's funny, you bring up history, and I know you're a big fan of racing, you're a big fan of the history, and I know a lot of people who might be checking out the Belmont for the first time or really starting to get into it, inevitably, they are going to show the replay of what Secretariat did before our time, Marco. But still, I'm amazed every time I saw it. I just watched it the other night. They played it. And you mentioned all those things about this track, right? The third leg, how ridiculous it is. You know, when you look at how that horse ran that race, man, and what kind of champion that was, I don't think it'll ever be duplicated. It's one of those things in sports where I don't ever see that happening again. That was truly remarkable.
Yeah, Big Red, he was a freak. You know, and when we say that's the highest compliment you can give a racehorse. I mean, he was a freak of nature, and we will never see that again. I don't think in our lifetime. The horse just kept opening up more and more, and he wasn't. You know, Ron Turco wasn't, riding on him. I mean, he was just out there going to church on Sunday afternoon. He was just hanging on. Stop and pick up grandma and go to breakfast afterwards. I mean, the horse was incredible, and to see that the other horses just no match.
Yeah.
And
it's just
great history. You'll see that clip.
Oh yeah.
Which has been seen more, the Secretariat, Belmont, or how about Gibson's home run in the World Series when he had to limp around, the bag and doing the arm pump as he's going in around past second. When I think of historic plays and things and replays, those are the ones that pop into my head. Yep,
absolutely. And by the way, it wasn't like he was racing against a bunch of schlubs either. I mean, they were horses in that race purposely just to go out there and beat him, and unbelievable. I just don't ever think we're ever going to see that. And if you guys see it for the first time this weekend, because they will show it, it is unlike. Keep that race in mind when you watch these guys go around the track. Marco D'Angelo, WagerTalk.com, joining us. Talk to us about Bloodline. I've heard a lot about this here lately, and you would think Bloodline is always important, but it seems people seem to think it's even a little bit more important here when it comes to the Belmont.
Well, it is because of the distance. You'll hear, well, he's bred to get the distance. What's that mean? Okay. The sire and dam had success racing in this distance, or have produced offspring that have been successful. Well, you want to talk about being successful. For the hot sire for distance, it has been a good sire, period. But Tappet has owned the Belmont. Tappet horses race so well in the Belmont. They're bred for distance, and, it's a cliche, but, not everybody can get this. And he's got a couple horses in this race and one of them is going to be the horse that I'm picking to win the race, and the other one is a horse that I am using on my exactas on Saturday. And be honest with you, I really do like this race. I think it's going to set up nicely. With the 10-horse field, it's the perfect amount, and we're going to be attacking it. And I think we're going to still get, even though the handle on Saturday for the Belmont will be a fraction of what it normally is if there was a Triple Crown on the line. It's just, it's sad that, it doesn't draw the attention. This is still one of the three greatest horse races every spring, early summer. This is what we as horse fans wait for. But for the average fan, it's just another horse race to them if it doesn't have Triple Crown on the line.
There's only been a few, Marco. Point Given, a Fleet Alex, American Pharaoh, Justify. who were actually the big favorites, the favorites since 1996 to actually go on here and win. So some people might say, listen, the big chalk doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win. Tacitus, I don't know. Does that hurt? Does that help? Is it just a history lesson? Why do you think that is?
Well, it's a history lesson that, big prices rule the day a lot of the times, because what happens? Who's the horse that's the favorite? A horse that's been racing good in the first two legs, and that's why everybody's on him. And we know how hard it is to win a Triple Crown because of this particular race. So they're not betting. The average public is going to bet the horse that's looked the best and expect him to do the same here, and it just doesn't happen. But in this instance, this is the first time that we've got a horse that is racing, that is the morning line favorite, that didn't race in the Preakness.
Interesting.
And going against the horse that maybe should have won the Derby and the horse that won the Preakness. And they put him in as the morning line favorite over War of Will, and that's Tacitus. And, Joe, I agree with it 100%. Tacitus ran a super race in the Derby. Finished fifth, got placed fourth because of the interference and the reshuffling of the order of finish there. But he did everything asked of him in that race. Never had, it was a horrible day that day with the track. You remember the mud throwing up on him. This is a horse that was inside the entire race. Never really had a clear sailing till late, and was having mud thrown in its face the whole time. He raced that good off of a bad track. Now we're supposed to, knock on wood, have good weather on Saturday. I expect a big mount from Tacitus, and the fact that he skipped the Preakness makes it even that much better, because now this is the fresh horse. This is a horse that has the tactical speed to get away mid-pack and just put his, just tie a little rope on the flank of War of Will. Just follow him around the racetrack.
Yep.
And when War of Will makes his move, you're making your move. And you follow him around. And when I said about the jockeys being so important in this race, the other thing about Big Sandy is because of those big sweeping turns, people have habits sometimes, and they have a brain fart. They forget where they're at, the jockeys. And they think as they're going into that last turn, they're thinking about every other racetrack configuration out there. And they start their move. And if you start your move where you start it at every other racetrack, about halfway down the stretch, you're going to say, oh, shit. Okay? Because when you come off that turn, you're not looking at maybe an eighth of a mile to go. You're looking at a full quarter of a mile. That Big Sandy Belmont's got a long stretch. And that horse starts, he passed everybody, come off the turn, there's nobody left in front of him. Hey, we won. I'm cruising. And then all of a sudden you see this horse flying late, full of pace, and the jockey, you see their eyes. Well, you got their goggles on, so you can't see it clear, but their eyes bug out like frogs. And where the hell did he come from? And the horse is flying, and your horse is looking to go back to the barn and have supper because he thought he won the race. That's why the jockeys here, the jockeys that race here and are familiar with this track have a huge edge. And there's several jockeys in this race, obviously, and there's only a couple horses that have actually raced on this course to have that experience under their belt. And there will be a couple horses we talked about. But as far as I said with Tacitus, the reason you want to just keep your eyesight on War of Will and have that target. Horses love to have something to shoot at, okay? When trainers train their horses, they generally don't train their horses by themselves. They generally train them with one or two other horses. And the good horse, is the one that's always just a little bit off the other one when they're going around the track, because they want that horse to have a target to go at. And then when, they get close to the wire, they'll let the horse, they'll give him his head and let him just get up and get by, because you don't want to break the heart of the training mate either,
Right.
But you want the good horse to be the one that's, passing right at the end. And that's a situation where I think Tacitus will be just tied on to War Will, follow him around, and then as those two are coming down the lane, should be a nice battle for, half of a stretch. But I think in the end, that extra distance in that third race in 5 weeks versus 2 races in 5 weeks for Tacitus is going to be what's going to give him that little added extra to get that extra, energy burst to get by. And I think that that's where you get Tacitus to get the win. And then the question mark becomes, does War Will hang on for second? Or oftentimes when a horse does get past like that, they begin to, they'll give it up late once a horse goes by him. And a lot of times you'll have horses come from behind and and run by that horse as well. And there's going to be several other horses I think will be charging in the stretch.
Marco D'Angelo joining us, wagertalk.com. Guys, I'm going to put it up on the screen. Here it is, wagertalk.com. The opportunity to get aboard the Belmont package as well as a MLB high roller package there for tomorrow. Marco's got it all set. Plays will be sent to you. Hop on right now. Get over to wagertalk.com. Use the code Belmont10. Give you guys self an opportunity. Tomorrow you'll get emailed. You'll get notified. You'll have a day of racing as a way, also a day of MLB plays. It's going to be one hell of a profitable weekend. Take advantage now. Belmont 10 over at wagertalk.com. And Marco, listen, we've talked about pace a lot here on the first 2 legs. We were at the Florida Derby, right? And with the muddy track there to Kentucky, we weren't sure what was going to happen, and maximum security. Well, we all know there's got to be a pace setter in these races, right? Who's the pace setter here now of this small field? We've known who it was supposed to be previously. Who is it in this race that's going to get out and is going to set the tempo here?
Well, I made the joke that this owner put the horse in just to hear his horse get the first call, and that's going to be the number 1, Jovia. This horse doesn't belong in here. Doesn't have the speed figures to go with these horses, and I'm not even sure he's got the pedigree to get the distance. But he's going to be the horse busting out of there from the rail, and I think will be the early pace setter. I don't look for him to be anywhere near the top 3 horses as they're turning for home and crossing the finish line. I think he's a total pitch in this race. But full disclosure, my total pitch in the Preakness was Everfast, and boy, did he run it over and stuff it where the sun don't shine on me. But at least Everfast, here's the difference. Everfast was a horse I said didn't have a chance because they said he wasn't fast enough, and he just came from behind, never left the wood, shot up the rail, and got there past some tiring horses and snuck on to be second. Jovial's a horse that races on the front end, so they're going to be using him, and I guarantee you he's not going to have it at the end of the race. So I'm very confident in telling you can pitch the 1, Jovia, and I am pitching him. And if you see any number 1s on the board in the 11th race at Belmont on Saturday, if you want to look for me, I'll be at the Stratosphere. They have that bungee jump off the top of the Stratosphere. I may give that a try, and I'm a rather large man, and that's all calculations on that bungee cord of how far it's going to send you down with your weight. So I hope they have the weight correct when they do the calculation with me.
All right. See, now let's all hope we don't have any 1s on the toe board here when it's all said and done. All right, please. We want to keep Marco around here with us. You mentioned jockeys earlier, Mario. It's all over the place. I mean, has there been any stranger last month, Triple Crown wise, with Mike Smith? I don't know if it's lucky, unlucky, I don't know, but he's been all over the board with these 3 big races, and now he finds himself on Bourbon War. So I don't know what I mean. I don't want to say poor Mike Smith, but it's been all over the map for him.
Well, you know what? It started when he made his selection. He had a choice, and he went with Omaha Beach in the Derby. And unfortunately, Omaha Beach, suffered the mild surgery they had to do there and didn't get to go in the Derby. And then he was scrambling for horses from there, and then he's picking up horses. But at this point right now, and in the case with Bourbon War, he's picking up a horse where the jockey that was riding Bourbon War jumped to, ride a horse that he felt was better. So that's not a good sign for Mike Smith picking up Bourbon War. And I'll tell you, I'm not a big drinker, but I was on Bourbon War in the Preakness, and I needed a lot of bourbon after the race to try to numb how bad he raced in the Preakness, because I can't make an excuse for him other than I guess they screwed up in the decision to try blinkers, because that's the only thing I could say. That was the only thing that was different. Bourbon War basically never picked his feet up in that race. Never made a move and was never a factor. And I don't know what to do with him in this race. I mean, I will tell you this. He is not going to be one of my key horses.
Okay.
But I am going to have an exacta saver with him and my key horse, because it's a situation that I don't want to have him run me over and not have a ticket with him there if he reverts back to the Bourbon War that we thought he's supposed to be. But he's not going to be a key horse. This will be just an insurance policy.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, let me ask you this. Louis Saez, you and I, very familiar with good old Louis, right here? Maximum security. Well, there is no maximum security, but he is on your boy Everfast over here. So, Louis, interesting choice here, the number 2 horse for him to pick this up over here. I know you weren't big on Everfast outside of the pace over here, but is this a horse, 12-1 morning line, that you might have in some of your exotics?
I will have, other than the one horse, I will probably have every horse in this race somewhere on a 4th place end of a superfecta. That's about as far as I can get excited about Everfast. Like I said, he got me in the Preakness, and good for him, and he could get that same type of trip here. But you know what? There's some other horses in this race that wasn't in the Preakness that are much better at him at picking up the late pieces. And so I'm not a fan, even with Louis Saez, their maximum security fame, not looking for him. Oh, by the way, has anybody seen Gary West?
Yeah.
I don't, I hear him everywhere. I don't see the guy.
We're looking on milk cartons now for Gary West, aren't we? What a shock. Yeah. Unbelievable. Talk to me about another horse that was pretty impressive there, closing from 23 lengths back there at the Derby. How about Master Fencer? And I know I've talked to a lot of guys here this week. A lot of guys like this horse, or at least are telling me don't be surprised. Now, I don't know if that means in the money or maybe a 4th, but what do you think about Master Fencer?
He's definitely a long shot horse that has to be considered. He actually raced decent in the Kentucky Derby. You consider everything that we had there. He had a 96 Beyer speed figure in the Derby. Do you realize that in this Belmont field, we have only one horse with a triple-digit Beyer speed figure?
Really?
That's amazing. To be this time of the 3-year-old season and only one triple-digit Beyer. And we'll talk about that horse in a moment. That's another one of my long shots. But Master Fencer finished 7th. As you said, 23 lengths behind at one point. Got beat 4 lengths. And this is a horse from Japan. And we've seen every year these horses come from, there's always one horse that makes the trip from Japan, races in the Derby, and they never do well in the Derby. And it's part of the reason is they're racing over there to get themselves qualified to be able to come here. But then they got to, after doing that, the trail of, just like we have the Kentucky Derby road to the, the Derby, and you're doing all those prep races and everything, and then now you're following it up, with the Derby and the 20-horse field and everything. They got to do all of that too. Only they got to also do that travel trip, jump on the plane, make the trip across the pond here, go to quarantine. You don't go straight from the plane to your stall at the barn where you're going to be stabled at. You're stuck in quarantine. It disrupts a horse's routine. They're creatures of habit. It's a cliche, but it's very true. And I just think it's so hard, and that's why we haven't seen one of those horses come from Japan or come from Dubai and do well in the Derby. But now this horse has been in the United States for 5 weeks. He's skipped the Preakness, pointed solely for the Belmont. He's a horse that can get this distance. He is that closer with the big kick. And with the 5 weeks to get acclimated over here, I think this horse has a big, big chance of flying late and getting on the ticket. And if they go fast enough in this race early, could pick up the pieces. Tacitus and War of Will, if they have a heated battle from the top of the stretch home, and go at each other's throats the whole way down the lane, I very easily could see somebody that times that one last move perfectly and has all of the momentum and gets them at the wire and nips these two going by. And this is one of those horses that could do that. Now, I will tell you this much. People that are clockers, that are at the track in the morning watching horses jog and train, this is a horse that anybody that watches him work out doesn't like what they see.
Really?
Same way going into the Derby, okay? His workouts weren't, anything eye-popping. But he's one of these horses that race day shows up, and I'm not letting that bother me on this particular horse. I owned a horse like that his name was Skipper Dollar, one of the first horses I ever owned. The laziest, I wanted to call him, we got people listening here, so I'm going to keep it clean. But let me tell you this much. When you take a horse out, for his morning jog, normally takes about 15, 20 minutes at most. You do so many laps, just slow speed. You're just, loosening them up, keeping them move. That's the normal jog days. And then when you're training faster, it's a different story. But it would take this horse 45 minutes to do his daily jogging. They would draw straws to see who would be, the exercise rider on him every day.
Wow.
You put this prick in a race, when they turn around to go behind the gate and they're going the right direction on the racetrack, and horses know that. And that's a little tidbit if you ever wondered. When you see horses going, a lot like harness racing, you see some horses going the right way around the racetrack and some going the wrong way. Wrong way or just going jogging speed. And the horse knows that. Okay, hey, this is chill time. We're just out here. When you turn the horse, that means it's all business. It's go time.
Yep.
And they know that. And this horse was one of the best horses. But even in the race, he didn't get real excited early. He didn't get excited till they were going down the backside.
Yep.
And if you didn't have him out in position and ready to go, you better grab on, because he's going to find his own hole to get out, and he was on his way. This horse would race the last quarter of a mile. Gutsiest horse I had. He was always flying, made me money. I loved that horse, but he was the laziest horse you'll ever want to meet in your life. But he was all racehorse on race day. And that's where I'm going to put Master Fencer in this one. Don't worry about those morning workouts. I like this horse. LeProux's been racing very well. He's been a hot jockey. He rode him for the first time in the Derby, so give that, it's always good when you get somebody jump on a horse going from maybe a lesser jockey to a better jockey. You're going to get that big jump, but you're also still going to get a jump even with those best jockeys from their first time they jump on a horse to the second time, because now they learn even more about the horse. Yep. And there's where you're at with Master Fencer. This is a horse that do not leave off of your ticket.
I love it. A lot of people forget, these are athletes, guys, and some athletes, Barkley wasn't a great basketball practicer, so to speak, but when it was game time, Allen Iverson was the same situation. They even wrote, when I read a book about Seabiscuit, it was the same situation. Like, just, you'd look at it and go, this horse is a piece of crap. And then all of a sudden, when he looked another horse in the eye, it was like, you're not beating me. And that's really, they somehow have that switch that we always talk about in sports. Some horses just have that switch where it's like, oh, no, you're not beating me. I just want you to understand that. And they just kick it into another gear, Marco. You must see it all the time.
Absolutely. And also what ends up happening, you always question, and we talked about it with Maximum Security. How did Maximum Security ever be entered in a $16,000 claiming race? Okay? All right? I think Mark Casey's, pretty good trainer and pretty smart. How could he be that wrong here and misjudge us when sometimes that, Maximum Security could have been one of those horses that, wasn't a morning bloomer. He didn't look good training, and they just said, you know what, this horse isn't what we thought he was, and then they put him in a race, and we're like, oh, shit, I think I made a mistake.
It's
wow,
amazing.
Did we get lucky there?
They are athletes themselves, guys. They don't like to lose some of these horses as well. And I got to throw another one out here, too, that I've been, again, keeps popping up. I'm told that I'm crazy if I keep it off my card. And it's got that whole Peter Pan connection there with Sir Winston and Rosario. A lot of the guys are telling me, guys, this is the big horse. This is the one that's going to deliver the numbers. Is Sir Winston going to deliver numbers for us? Is he going to hit the board? What do you think?
Yeah, you've been hearing a lot of good stuff, or you watched the Wager Talk videos yesterday and watched the long shot video, because this was my long shot.
Yeah.
Sir Winston, the Peter Pan connection, absolutely. You got everything working for this horse here. This is a horse, he's got 9 lifetime starts and really was just average in all of them until that last one in the Peter Pan. What was different? Well, first of all, you had Joel Rosario for the first time, one of the best jockeys, in the country. I love Rosario. He jumped on this horse and jumped, get this, his race before that was the Bluegrass.
Okay.
He had a 65 Beyer speed figure. He is the only horse that has the triple-digit Beyer figure. He's got a 100 Beyer figure, and that happened in the Peter Pan. And what's so big about the Peter Pan? Well, the Peter Pan is run at Belmont on Big Sandy. So he's got that race over the track. That's another huge advantage. So you got a horse that had a breakout race. Now, when you have a big breakout race like that, I will say that you do have to worry about, there's a phrase in horse racing called bounce. Will the horse bounce in his next start? Well, what the hell does that mean, bounce? Well, if you go so good in your last race and it was something that you hadn't seen before and the horse went, a lot faster and, put out a lot more effort, energy, whatever, is he going to come back with that same? Is he going to improve, or is he going to regress? And regress, they call, instead of saying is he going to regress, they say is he going to bounce and throw in a clunker off of that. I don't think so. He's had enough time since the Peter Pan. This is the perfect prep race for the Belmont, is to race in the Peter Pan and then go to the Belmont. And then it also second ride from Rosario, as we say, as good as that jump was the first time. Now, Rosario, if there's anything that he learned about the horse in that first mount, he'll use that to his advantage this time, and I think this is a horse that's going to make that big move. Go back and watch the Peter Pan, and that's something we tell you every episode of your podcast we've done. I've told you about a horse, and go back, look at this particular race, and just watch him. It was only a 5-horse race that he was in the Peter Pan Stakes, but he was 15 to 20 lengths behind that entire race, basically. Watch the move this horse commenced in the final turn at Belmont, and watch him go by horses like they were standing still and flying in the stretch. Just run out of racetrack, at a distance. The way he was flying and the way he ran, galloped out after the race, gives every indication that this horse can get the 1.5 miles, and the horse is, breeding, says he can get there. He's out. His sire was awesome again, and that's a deputy minister. So a lot of pedigree there in the breeding with this horse. Look for him to be a factor. And there was another horse that was in that same Peter Pan race that I think you got to consider as well. The only thing that gives me cause on that particular horse, number 8, Intrepid Heart, is he's only got 3 lifetime starts. This is asking a lot for a horse with only 3 lifetime starts, didn't race at 2, to win a 1.5 mile race.
Interesting. Now, when you look at, we've also talked about here post position, right? And we just got the post positions of this here. Now, it isn't a 20-horse race, right? So we're not bringing out the auxiliary or anything along those lines. But, Mark, I mean, does any of these horses here, does a 7, coming in from the number 7 there, so Winston, or any of these horses on the rail of the outside, is there any reason for concern here with as far as post position goes?
This is the one race and the one racetrack that post position is not a concern for me.
Good.
If it helps anybody, maybe the rail helps Jovial because he's going to have that straight, long shot out of the gate into that first turn to get where he wants to be. But a 10-horse field and a mile and a half to do the distance, you got plenty of time to just get your horse wherever you want him to be. And there's not a lot of, it's not like, okay, if you would have said, all right, we've got 3 or 4 speed horses here that all want the lead.
Right.
Okay, well, this one's got the inside, this one's got the outside, so there's a little bit of an advantage there. Is this one going to get caught wide? We don't have that cavalry charge in this race. So I think everybody's going to be able to float out of the gate where they want to be. Nobody wants to go fast fractions because they got to be conscious of the mile and a half, and not a concern in the least for me on any of the post positions.
Now, let me ask you this, Mark, because, somebody had sent this in during the week. Some of the prop bets surrounding the Belmont are very interesting, and one of them was War of Will. Will win the Belmont, won't win the Belmont. A little chalky for won't will, but at minus $300, I don't know. Would you recommend to a sports investor, how convinced are you War Will won't win? Is it worth laying, $3 there for a horse to fade a horse like War of Will?
You could do
it's like
that
taking Chris Sale on the mound with the, for the Red Sox on a Tuesday night against Kansas City. Do you lay it or don't you?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a chalky guy, so that's not in my DNA. I don't like giving the books, laying the big favorite price there. I'm going to look and find the horse that's going to beat him, and I'm going to bet that horse. That's my bet. I'll tell you where might be some interesting ones, and I don't have them. Usually they put them up later today, the matchups, the head-to-head matchups, like golf matches. Now, in that situation, there's several horses that I think have a good shot to beat War of Will, and I will be looking at some of those because you're going to be getting plus prices on, just about anybody that you take in a heads-up match against War of Will. So I'll bet it that way.
And how about the time of the race, too? That's always been a big favorite over the last couple of legs. Will it be faster or will it be slower? We knew the Kentucky Derby, let's face it, with all that mud, there was a good chance it was going to be a little bit longer, that race. It was. Weather-wise for tomorrow, and knowing what you know about these horses, are you expecting blistering times here? Are you expecting maybe some faster than normal anticipation with these times?
My answer to you would be this. There's only one horse in the race with a triple-digit buyer speed figure.
Right.
I would be betting the unders on any times. I don't. This crop just doesn't, to me, warrant that we have any of those kind of horses that have super speed, and there's not a speed duel on paper here, so I just don't see how they can get the pace that would be necessary to get a faster race.
What about, and I'll leave you with this one here, John Velasquez, talk about a guy that might know Belmont a little bit here. He might have raced there once or twice. Intrepid Heart, number 8. Listen, he a little bit slow to begin with, right? A little slower start there in his last race, a little bit of a stumble in his graded stakes. Pedigree-wise, maybe what? The best horse in the field? You talked about Tappet, right? You talked about, listen, who's your daddy here, guys? Well, there may not be any better bloodline than with Intrepid Heart here. He's also got a pretty good jockey on top of him.
Yeah, and let's throw it the other way. He's got pretty good mama, too. The mother of the dam of this horse, Flaming Heart, was sired by Touch Gold. Remember Touch Gold? Touch Gold had Touch Gold had great success racing on the Triple Crown circuit and in this very race. So he's got it top and bottom. So from a breeding standpoint, this is the class of the race. It's that the 3 races that's the only thing that concerns me with them. But the flip side to that, You got Pletcher in New York with John Velasquez. Is there a better combination?
Exactly. That's,
okay, that's the
it's crazy.
That's the equivalent of Baffert and Smith on the West Coast.
Yes. Yep.
So, yes, you have to use that horse. Both horses out of the Peter Pan Stakes are going to be on my exactas.
All right, so they're going to be there. So just to recap again, Marco D'Angelo, WagerTalk.com, joining us, guys. Let me put it up on the screen again. What you're seeing there is WagerTalk.com. It is Marco's handicapping page there. Pretty easy to find. You'll see on the right-hand side the Belmont package along with an MLB high roller package. Combine that, guys. You're going to have a weekend full of profits right there, not only with the Belmont but some Major League Baseball plays. All will be sent to you. And I should remind you, whether you have bet horses or you don't, the best part about the packages with Marco is the fact that you're actually going to be able to cash the ticket, is that you don't have to worry about screwing the ticket up because he pretty much spells it out. We laugh here. It's beyond idiot-proof. Somehow or another, Marco has figured out to keep it beyond idiot-proof, but it certainly is. It's a piece of paper, guys, you can download. You hand it to the person in the window, and everything they need to know is right there, and all you got to do is hand them the money. You are good to go. I mean, it really is that simple, Marco, right? You do all the work. You just got to be able to hand it in there, and you good to go and play the ticket.
It is. I mean, our buddy Ralph Michaels on your show all the time. Knows nothing about horses. I hand it to him. He can't even screw it up. So it is idiot-proof.
I love that. I'm going to send him this, too. It's going to be great. Absolutely love it. I still have a domino sign in my car for him. But bottom line, get to wagertalk.com, guys, all right? Be a part of it, Belmont. And, Marco, I do believe you're going to throw a couple of baseball plays in there tomorrow as well, no?
They're going to get my baseball high roller play tomorrow. So my top baseball play going on Saturday. You'll get that along with the Belmont selections. And, as you said, the betting sheet, exactly how I'm doing it. And it's going to be a fun day. We're going to do it. And, I heard rumors. I'm not sure, Joe, that, I have to cash this last leg or you're not letting me back in the state of Florida for next year to come, for the Florida Derby or anything. Is that rumor true?
Well, let me tell you what you have, the aggravation you have caused in my life here, because if I can't get one here with you, then I'm going to have to deal with Mark Lawrence for the rest of the year telling me, why do you talk to that Marco guy? All right, why don't you just talk to me? I mean, why don't you just bring me on the show? And I don't want to have to deal with that, Marco, all right? So we're going to do it this time. We're going to cash the Belmont. You're going to do it. So at the very least, we can go back and throw it at our good friend Mark Lawrence's face. Now, here's what we'll do. I'm going to run down real quick, those of you that might just be joining us. I'm going to go ahead real quick. I'm going to give you the name of the horse. Marco, you just give us a quick synopsis of whether you like the horse, you don't, whether it's something you're going to consider playing. We'll start with number 1, Jovia there. Do you like number 1? Do you not like number 1?
Hell no way. Move on.
Bam. Number 2, Luis Saez Everfast, coming off of the Preakness.
Could finish 3rd or 4th at best in this race, but I don't see him doing that. I'm not going to have him as a key horse. Perfect.
Number 3, Master Fencer.
Master Fencer, yes. Like Master Fencer, be a horse on our ticket. And this is a situation where going to be a little bit of a price, have him on there, and would not be a shock if he would pull the upset.
I love this. All right, now, a horse we didn't talk about, of course, one of the Ortiz brothers here. Number 4, Tax. What do you think of Tax? Never a factor in the Derby.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw out the Derby. That was the horse's first ever race on the mud. And the way he raced, I think he didn't like it. And everything else he did other than that race, well, the other 5 starts, how about 2 wins, 2 seconds, and a 3rd?
Yep.
He was perfect, 5 for 5 on the board. I think you got to consider Tax. And this is one of those horses taking that golden route, racing the Derby, skip the Preakness.
Yep.
Hello, I'm back.
Yep.
Tax use on a ticket in your exotics.
Pretty good driver there, too, as well. All right, number 5, Mike Smith, Bourbon War.
The Bourbon War, the horse that's caused me to drink.
Yeah.
This is the mystery horse. This horse has talent. He showed none of it in his last race. I honestly, as I said, I'm only going to have him on a couple saver tickets with exactas just in case He does, sport that form that he has shown in the past. But, boy, we didn't see any of it in the last race. He is the biggest question mark of the field, but I'll have him in a couple exotics.
Another horse we didn't touch on here, but a horse you and I have spent a lot of time here covering the Triple Crown races. How about Spinoff with Javier Castellano? We all thought the mud was going to be great coming off the Louisiana Derby. Hated the Kentucky Derby track. Hated the mud, hated all the horses. We didn't talk about Spinoff. What do you think?
Yeah, Spinoff has tactical speed that he can get out there and be sitting second or third. So if they go slow fractions, this is a horse that can hang around with the dry track and maybe make the ticket. I see him as a third or fourth place horse at best.
Number 7, Sir Winston, Joel Rosario. Peter Pan connection here, guys. Been there, done that at Belmont. What do you think?
Definitely got to use him on your ticket. Off of that last race, he's got the best momentum heading into this race next to War of Will.
Yep. Yeah, guys, you've had you've had Joe Torre, Derek Jeter, you've had Phil Jackson, you've had Michael Jordan, and now we've got John Velasquez and Intrepid Heart. Number 8, man, checks all the right boxes from a pedigree standpoint. Great trainer, great bloodline, great jockey. What says you?
What says me is put him on your ticket. This horse has a license to be sitting on a big race, only 3 races. But I'll tell you what, also put this horse's name down for the fall races, the late summer and fall races. I think you're going to be hearing a lot about Intrepid Heart as this horse gets 2 or 3 more starts. Could make a late run, get himself into the picture of, maybe a horse, if he could, win this race and then come back and have a big race in the Breeders' Cup later in the year, and have some nice races in between. He could get himself worked into the mix for Horse of the Year. It's because it's that wide open, and we're talking about a horse that's only got 3 starts.
Yep, absolutely. It's Frey. He's ready to rock and roll. Number 9, we got our Preakness winner, War of Will, Tyler Gaffleon. Come on, what do you think about War of Will?
You got to put him on the ticket. He's done everything asked of him. I just think that the 3 races in 5 weeks is going to take its toll. I think that he'll be there on the ticket, but I think somebody's going by him.
If and let me just say this, if he does win this, all right, big if, but if he does, is this not one of the most underrated horses of a generation?
Absolutely, but it's also going to, you'll have the asterisk of the Derby, but you also have the asterisk that this was not a star-laden 3-year-old crop.
Gotcha.
There was no superstars here. Maybe the best horse of the 3-year-old campaign didn't even get to race in any of the 3-year-old races. Omaha Beach, Game Winner, another horse that everybody was talking about, and we thought was going to show up here for the Belmont, was a no-show. They're pointing to another race. He's a good horse. He's not a great horse.
Love that. All right, finally, Tacitus, Jose Ortiz. Tacitus seems to be everyone's lighting up here. Keeps pointing to it, keeps circling it. What do you think?
I think he's the horse to beat. He's got the, 5 career starts, so we haven't seen the best of him yet. Raced well in the Derby. The added distance is going to do nothing but help this particular horse. He's got a racing style that's perfect for the track. He's got a jockey that's perfect for the track, and he's also got a trainer that knows how to win distance races. Remember, most of the time when you're going to see the longer races, those races are on grass, not dirt. And one of the best turf jockeys for decades in this business has been Bill Mott. So he knows how to get the distance out of a horse, and he's got the breeding to do it. I think Tacitus is the real deal.
All right, so if you guys were paying attention, keeping score at home, basically everyone except for the hell no number 1 is going to be on the ticket here, people, okay? I hope we narrowed that down for you. Bottom line is get to wagertalk.com, get to Marco's page there, get the Belmont package, get the baseball play tomorrow, make it a profitable weekend. And Marco, I think, it's our last shot here to cash in here for the Triple Crown. We do have, and you brought it up, though, when is the Breeders' Cup exactly?
That's always like the first weekend in November. It's always around my birthday.
It's right around. All right, okay.
In case you forget when my birthday is to send that present, Joe.
Yes.
November 6th, you'll just think Breeders' Cup. Marco. Stallion, hung like a stallion, all those kind of things.
Love that. Yes. Synonymous there with with stallion. I see where you're going with that. Do you happen to have a clue? Does Kevin Durant play or not play in the finals?
To me, I've said it all along. If he didn't play in game 1 or 2, he isn't playing. I think this injury is way more than they want it to make it out to be, and just keeping that, making him have to prepare for it. If you can get out there, it's the NBA Finals.
Right.
Wouldn't we have seen him already?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. They lose tonight, that being Golden State. Is it over?
Pretty much you would think so. Going back to Toronto, this team, Golden State's never been in this position if they fall behind 3-1. This one's I'm scratching my head on how Toronto's doing this, and give House credit. He's I didn't think that much of him as a coach. I just think he was a guy that inherited a team that had a lot of talent, but just couldn't get over that last hurdle. But he's definitely taken him to the next level, and the team has gotten better at the right time. Obviously, you're playing well if you're in the NBA Finals, but this team is on quite a run, and they've changed their shooting percentage, guys. Look, they were shooting 30, 37, 38, 39 on a nightly basis, and now 48, 52% from the field. They're pushing the pace. It was smart to push the pace in Game 3. You got a depleted Golden State team that's got to rely on Curry and Draymond Green to do basically everything right now with Thompson out in Game 3, and they made Curry work on both ends of the floor. They pushed the pace, and that was, I thought, the key to winning Game 3.
All right, here we go. Final question for you, Marco. Better chance of winning in 6, the Blues or the Raptors?
Better chance of winning in 6. I'm going to go with the Blues because when you get a hot goalie, he can carry a team. Yeah. And this kid, what a story it's been. Binnington inherits a last-place team in January, and this kid gets hey, go in, you got your shot, go in the nets. It's been phenomenal ever since this kid's been in there.
It's crazy.
What a story would be. You go to last year's story to the team that gets to the Stanley Cup Finals, first-year expansion team, the Vegas Golden Knights. Then you go to this year in a team that was in last place in the beginning of January, and you put a rookie goaltender in and totally turn around the franchise. What a story. You got to root for you have to root for the Blues.
Yeah, good organization.
By the way,
good people, good organization.
I'm tired of seeing these people in Boston celebrating everything, okay?
Amen.
Enough.
Amen. If I see that kid one more time, be like, I got to go to another parade, I'm going to stick my foot in his ass. I agree with you 100%. Marco D'Angelo, WagerTalk.com. Guys, go take advantage of it. Belmont package right now. Code Belmont10. Take $10 off the package. Get the baseball play. Get everything you need to know about profiting with the Belmont tomorrow. Marco, always a pleasure, brother. Love you. Thank you for taking the time. Feel better. We'll talk to you again next week.
No problem. Thanks, Joe.